morning. This is Marcia Stromgren, and you've tuned in to Just the Facts. I have in the studio today a candidate running for the at-large school board position. Dana, I want to welcome you here, and I would like you to tell the viewers your name because I'm sorry, I can't say it real well. So,
my name is Dana Krivogorsky, and I am running for the school board at large.
And why did you choose to run for the school district? Do you have children in the school system?
Yes, I do. I have one in the first grade at Lowell in the Spanish immersion program. And I have another one who's little, who goes right behind. So my kid's going to be in public schools for a long, long time.
So what is it that made you think about running for this position?
Well, I started to get involved this winter a little bit, and then I started to get interested because we had this project, the mulch replacement at the playgrounds. So I started to get involved with the parents, and when the whole process, the process, how it's done, the bidding process, got me interested in the costs that come with any school projects. And when I did my research, I stumbled upon the problem that I am not able to get my hands on the public information, which should be available to any taxpayer. And I am basically running to see that so the money goes directly into the classrooms. I'm running so the kids can benefit the best from the resources that are available. I'm running because I would do not want to see achievement gap. I'm running to see money spent wisely toward the kids rather than someplace else.
Now, you mentioned public information. Would you tell us, the viewers, what do you mean by what information you were seeking? You stumbled on some information and you sought to get it, and yet you are not allowed to have it, or what is the situation here? What kind of information?
Not allowed is not the word that I would use. It's just I can't find it, or I'm not provided that. So I've been asking for the budget in particular, and I am for the budget unedited, raw budget. So not the numbers that have been digested and analyzed and put out in the public, but the raw unedited budget. And it seems to be, I've been asking time after time, and in order to get the full picture of the district, to see the programs and how much money are spent on the, let's say, on the rewarding the teachers or different programs, and see where we can improve, you need to have a data. Because I'm doing science for a living, I'm a researcher, so you need the data to make a decision, to have a picture of what's going on. And I just had a hard time getting my hands on it. So I've been requesting multiple people, and I do not seem to get a hold of it.
As it's my understanding from a recent conversation with someone who is involved in the district, they are not allowed to have that information either. Now, I know the budget was passed in June.
Yes.
And yet, there are 4 people currently on that board that don't ask questions, and there are 3 people that do ask questions. And the 4 people that don't ask questions, yay and nay, as I saw for 8.25 years, as I filmed what was going on, they yay and nay whatever the administration says. I mean, they very rarely say nay, but they always say yay to whatever the administration says. In other words, those people that you have elected to the school district are passing on vital statistical information that they've never seen. Now, being an elected official, the Soil and Water District has $1 million budget. I know exactly where the money goes because I get a report every single month, broken down about where the money comes from and where the money is spent. And I am supposed to sign off on that document every single month. Now, if you don't have that information and you're elected to a position, how can you make a decision, an intelligent decision about that's the proper way the money is spent? Now, I know that the position of an elected official is not to micromanage the district, but you sign off on those documents. When you approve or disapprove, well, but when you put your stamp of approval on there, you are accountable to the public for where that money is spent. You have a right, and a valid right, to have that information before you make a decision. Now, running for office, to be prepared to take on that position should you be elected, absolutely crucial that you get your hands on that information. I would say that this comes under the Freedom of Information Act, and there should be a demand made of this administration to give it to you.
Well, funny that you mentioned it. The Star Tribune from Minneapolis just a couple of days ago published the article where the other districts also have a hard time releasing this information. So it's not just our district. So, but as I said, I'm not, it seems to be that in this particular case, it's not elected official or the candidates. It's any member of the public. It's a public information. So it's really does not have anything to do with your status as far on a school board, but any taxpayer should have an access to this information. It does fall under the law. It's a law, basically. What I think the problem lays is that there is really no accountability. There is no repercussion for not following the law.
That's correct.
I think it's very minor from what I've read. Once again, I'm not a lawyer, but from what I've read from the Minnesota official webpage is that very little or none at all consequences for not doing that. And I think that's where the problem lays. But my belief is that elected candidate or anybody who would like to take a look at it should have absolutely free and unrestricted access to that.
Well, and I'm not arguing with you, but as an elected official
Absolutely.
or somebody running for that office, it's absolutely crucial that you have it. And if it's the law and it's not being followed, that means there has to be some type of force implemented, and it doesn't matter whether it's this district or any district around the state. The public has a right to know, and the public needs to do an outcry, but the public doesn't even know. That's why this program, the public doesn't know that you and I are talking about this issue. They have no clue what's going on for the most part. And when I became an elected official and realized my responsibility to the people that elected me, I've done my very best in my 2 different elected positions thus far to make sure that if they have a question, I am going to get the answer for them, and I will pursue it until I do get the answer. And I think that's what we have to do in this situation. We have to pursue this issue so that you as a candidate or an elected official and the public have the right to get that information. If the law says it's their right, then let's enforce that.
And that is the main point in my platform. It's transparency and responsiveness. So I personally answer to every single email, to every single post, to every single comment. And if people ask me, I absolutely make sure that I give them an official link to where this information comes from. And if elected, I'm going to do my absolute best to keep public informed what is going on. Because that is my responsibility. If elected, I carry responsibility with their money, which is huge. Huge. So somebody entrusts me to basically make a decision on their kids' life, like on their kids' education, on their kids' future. And it's absolutely I take it very, very seriously. And the best way is to keep parents and to keep the public informed.
I agree, and I'm glad to hear that openness, which too often is not there today. Could we be updated on the mulch issue? I was quite involved in filming that at one time, and of course I have no clue as to what's happening. I know there was terrible controversy over that issue, and so would you want to bring us up to date since you were working on that?
Yes, so they're currently, I think, they were putting MacArthur today, the wood chips yesterday or day before. So they're going to have a playground soon. The update that I know is that the weather delayed a little bit that project because of the rain. They needed to set up the drainage. But it seems to be moving along, and I believe most of the playgrounds have been removed, and they are really trying to catch up because we had such the weather update. We had more rain than Seattle recently, so not that it matters for this program, but that's where the delay comes from.
Well,
it's from the weather.
And there's always those types of delays. I was looking after 3 young children. They just moved into the city a week ago Wednesday night, and I was going to take them to the Lester Park playground, and I drove down there, and lo and behold, it was all torn up. So I assumed that Lester Park was being renovated, but I wasn't sure how many others. Are they going to finish all of the elementary schools that are you aware that this 1 year now, and then go on to other?
What I know
ones?
is basically from the school board updates, because I attended since March every school board meeting other than my surgery, but in the committee meetings. So the update that I know that yes, they do plan to finish it. The plan was probably by October, but as I said, there was a weather delayed.
So maybe.
I don't quote me on this one, but because of the weather delays, unfortunately, they will not be able to proceed as far as. But Dave Spooner was pretty good about keeping that up to date on the project. Yeah.
Okay, good. Now, I had a visit with Dana last night, and we talked for quite some time. There were some issues that you brought up that I'd like you to talk about, and one of them is, now, one of the school board members has been very adamant about trying to pay down our indebtedness in the RED plan. And you revealed some very interesting information last night that the way that these contracts have been set up, there would be penalties and all kinds of problems if we tried to do that because of the way the contract was written. Would you explain that to the public? Because I know we've never covered this on any of the other programs I've done.
Well, first of all, those certificates of participation and the agreement, they are on Google. I didn't have to. I would like to let you know that I didn't have to request them from administration or the school board. I just basically Googled it. They're in a PDF file. They're available online for anybody who is interested to download.
And that is through the school district's website or just Google?
It's just a Google Certificate of Participation to Northland Securities, and it will come up. There's a tip of the day. So the PDF files are available, and anybody can read it. So anybody can take a look at them. So yes, it's absolutely true that the front and center of the agreement, it says that the district can cancel the contract at any given moment. That's absolutely true, and it actually states throughout the agreement.
Cannot or
can.
Okay.
Yes. That is true. Unfortunately, there are some consequences. For example, we are, as a district, and that is why I'm advocating kind of to let this issue be, and we can do nothing about it, is because the terms of agreement are set up that way that if we fail on the payments, if we are not going to maintain a certain percentage of the positive cash flow, the buildings of our school districts are the collateral to that agreement. So we are leasing them until it's paid off, kind of like the same as a mortgage.
Right.
The same idea. So if we default on a payment or if we default on the terms, it states that we I believe it says we have 10 days to vacate the buildings of some sort. And we also are not particularly allowed to renegotiate and obtain another loan to pay this one. We're going to be responsible for the penalties, and we're going to be responsible for the fees associated with it, going back to the original terms of agreement. So it was not probably in the best interest of the district to sign up this on this kind of terms. We did need to renovate the buildings. The buildings are crumbling, but maybe the terms are not to the full degree favorable to the district. But any government body makes bad decisions. And what I think we need to do, we need to accept that, and we need to move on and never to repeat the same mistake again. And actually be better prepared the next time the similar situation will come along, so we're not going to be stuck with a percentage of the rate that we cannot renegotiate. I think the first maturation of the COP is 2019, and the next is going to be 2020, the next year. So at this point, I do not think, coming to your original question, I do not think it would be, it would worth their while to go into it and renegotiate that. Because the terms are set up that way that we're going to end up paying probably more penalties than we saved. Once again, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a governmental accountant, but from what I've read and what anybody can read, and I did consult a professional who understands this. So that's my view on that we need to learn from this mistake and move on and never to repeat that again and understand where we stand right now. Hence, and the budget. I would like to see where else we can have the money pump into education and into the classrooms rather than so.
Well, I will say this, Donna, because I was there. None of that was ever explained, and I was at those meetings. It wasn't talked about in closed door sessions either because of my contacts with people on the school board. So those that were concerned were not made aware of the potential consequences, and that is really a big mistake, or whatever we want to call it. We'll leave it right there. Now, also while we were talking, your concern is to get more money into the classroom, and you stated that a few minutes ago. So what can we do to get more money in the classrooms? Because we have so many kids going into other districts. I mean, we just heard about the big situation down in Renshaw a few weeks back, and they wanted to pass a levy because their schools are getting overcrowded, and we have 100 students that go down to Renshaw from this district. We have students going to Proctor and Hermantown and all the alternative educations. We built these shiny new schools, and they're not coming, they're leaving. There are many problems why they are leaving. But the only thing that is on the table right now is your taxes are going to go up. I mean, we have to pay for the upkeep of these buildings, as you just said. We have to pay for these loan payments. So what are we going to do when we lose $10,000 per student going to other districts? What are we going to do to raise money without raising taxes? Are there any alternative ways that we can get some more money into the classroom, which is absolutely imperative for the future of our country, of our city, our country?
I completely agree with you, but unfortunately, I do not have answer to these questions without seeing the budget. So unless you have the data in the full picture, where the other money are spent, where the other money goes, without data, you cannot make any plausible decision. So first of all, I would like to say that any parent, and very rightfully so, seeks the best education for their kid, any way they find fit. I believe that it's any parent's right to seek the best alternative, the best, whatever they find fit best for their kid. Whatever that is homeschooling, whatever that is charter school, whatever there is private school, whatever there is public school, anything, it's any parent's right. And the parents cannot be faulted for it. What we can do as a public education, we can reinstate the confidence in parents that we're going to do a good job with their kids. And hiding how we spend money is not the way to gain the confidence. So it's really this work that we need to do with the public as a school board. Go out there and trust us again. Trust us with your kids, which is a huge responsibility. We're going to do a good job. We're going to spend money wisely. Your money for your kids, we're going to spend it wisely, and we're going to take this responsibility seriously. That's the only thing. We can go out there in public and absolutely try to do the right thing. And by doing the right thing, we're basically advocating for the kids to come back into the district. It's just a human nature, if you see something that is not quite sits right with you, to shy away from it. We do it with businesses when we provide our business to, like shopping or whatever that is. It's really, but this is kids. This is their future. This is so, it's so huge. It cannot be taken lightly. So it's basically parents who the schools appear because there is a need in it. The other alternatives to the education appear because there is a need to it in parents, because they do not, I think community does not trust us. And if elected, this is going to be one of absolutely priorities, trying to provide, to show them that I will take my job seriously. It's not for the personal gain, it's for the public service. It's a little idealistic, but I'm becoming a public servant. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to serve the public, whatever they find, whatever they want.
Well, after our discussion last night, I went home and the first thing I picked up was another mailing. I get a lot of mailings from different organizations. It said, actions speak louder than words. There's a lot of weight in that. It's fine to go out there and say that you're going to do this and you're going to do that. I think the first thing the Duluth School District has to do is go out there and apologize to the public and start showing that they can be trusted by their actions. Their words mean nothing, and the public knows that. I am in contact with people all the time through my business and through my soil and water and whatnot, and people don't trust this school district anymore. And so just saying that's going to happen and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, it's not going to work. An apology would be the best place to start. And that takes a big, humbling nature to say, you know what, I made a mistake. And you know what, we are all humans, so we do make mistakes. That's a given. We're not perfect, and we never will be. But when you make a mistake, humble yourself enough to say, I did it wrong. I am sorry. I had to do that when I was on the township board. I got some information from a township that operated entirely different than we did. And they got a lot of money from the mining. They're up on the range. And they don't have to pay for the fire department because of the mining's contribution to the townships. So they basically gave the fire department free reign of the facility that is actually owned by the township. And they had a cohesive agreement and working well. I brought partial information back to the township and said we need to stop micromanaging the fire department and blah, blah, blah. Well, that turned into a big problem. And when it blew up, it was right at the end of my term, I had to apologize to the people in that room, and that was loaded with very angry and mad people. That was an extremely hard thing to do, but I did it, and I don't regret. I mean, they understood, hey, I made a mistake, but I was willing to say it. And that has garnered me a reasonable relationship with the people in the township. So this is what the district needs to do. It has made many, many mistakes, deliberately or not deliberately. And the former superintendent, he came into town and he made big mistakes and left this superintendent and the board with a lot to deal with. But apologize to the people. We need to rebuild that trust. It's the only way it's going to ever happen.
Well, I cannot speak for the superintendent or the other board members. I just can speak for myself. And I think, apologizing, yes, it can go a long way because it shows the human side of people. But I do not go into this race, I'm not going into this job with a preconceived notion. I'm very clear that the moment that I'm elected, it becomes my mess, it becomes my problem, and I take upon myself all the burden of the previous decisions made. So I'm fully aware that there's no really I in this. It's all this history, it becomes mine. And the only thing that I can do, going back to my original statement, is keep public as informed as possible and start rebuilding this trust. Because I think it starts with knowledge, really. Because nobody likes to be duped. Nobody likes to be, fooled in some way or another. But people would like to know. And door knocking, I've been doing a lot of walking around Duluth. And it's not as small as people think it is. Once you start door knocking, let me tell you that much. But the anger in people about the past decisions. And the first thing, were you here? When did you move to Duluth? Were you here? Well, actually, I was here. I just didn't have my kids. I read it in the paper. That's my extent of it. And I didn't have kids in the system. And that is what we need to understand going back to the decision-making process. That is why I'm advocating for the budget committee with the people who are professionals and fluent in governmental accounting. Because this long-term vision of our today's decision-making need to be made by the people who have experience in it. They need to be done with a professional. They can advise to the board. It's still up to the board to make decision. But we need to a little bit focus on our long-term goals. Where do you want to be in 10 years? What do I, as a human, as a household, as a district, as a community, where do we want to see our bank account for the district I'm talking about in 10 years? Because we want to see our kids graduate and go and succeed. We have that plan. But for that, in order to provide them that, I think kids should be able to take any class they are interested in at any given. If they want to sign up for it, they should have an opportunity to do so. Because that is an opportunity. You create them a learning opportunity. Education is the key. I really believe it's everything.
Oh, I cannot disagree with you on that one. It is the only key.
Yeah. So, and when we looked at it, we want to invest. We invest a long term into the education, into the employment opportunity. If we that chef program that we have at schools, it's brilliant. It's wonderful. It gives kids the taste, like interested in culinary arts, or any other. But we should have, once again, we have to have a certain amount of capital, a certain amount of money to provide those programs. The realistic world is, it costs money.
Yes.
As much as I would like to talk about the sunny future, rainbows, and that we need to pay teachers who will provide this if we are about to hire more, in order to reduce class sizes, in order to provide teachers the support that they need. My first exposure to was at the Homecraft, Sarah Hutchison. I kept saying about it. That woman blew my mind how hard she worked. She's a kindergarten teacher. How much of personal time, effort, money she put into that classroom. with my son. It's unbelievable. And we have these dedicated people. The district's full of them. But we need to have some sort of resources, some sort of support system, and that costs money. Actually, we do have a support system, but with 35 kids, I think they can use a little bit more in the classroom.
I can't agree more on that one. And one of my latest interviews said that $11 million has come out of the classrooms now, and this particular person understands the economic situation completely, and he's been on the board before and then off the board and back on the board now. Many people know him as Harry Welty. And when he was explaining how that drain from the classroom has gone into financing the Red Plant, it's grievous to me. I went to Denfeld, graduated in 1965. We were 484 kids. We were the war baby boom. I can't think of more than 12 kids that didn't graduate out of that class. And they all went on to be very successful. Not all of them as successful as others, but you go out to Denfeld and you see the Hall of Fame there, and my goodness sakes, we had innumerable people that went on to be professors, wrote books, just achieved major things. And now we hear about, well, a young man in the paper talking about how he got a diploma, but he didn't really get, he's not qualified to be out there as a graduated student with skills that he can use. And we talked briefly now, what is your profession, Dana?
My trade is I'm a molecular biologist, so I do experiments for a living, and I also taught.
You've taught where?
I taught at UMD, and I taught a couple of programs. We had I had people that I managed, and I taught them to do experiments and to work in the lab and to obtain that experience. So we did. It's more for the adult enrichment programs.
Oh.
At UMD, I was teaching the freshmen and sophomores general chemistry and biochemistry.
Okay, and what years were you there teaching?
Up until 2.5 years ago. So I was on my master's program. I went to get my master's in chemistry, and before that I did research, so writing grants. So I'm a science person. I'm a bookworm.
Okay. Well, now, in your teaching, you mentioned something last night that struck a chord with me, because I've heard other educators say this. Ed Crawford, who's now with Human Resources in the city of Duluth, was up at the Lake Superior College, and the first time I talked with him, I asked him the question that was on my mind, which was, is it true that we're sending students from the Duluth School District, and perhaps other districts too, but I'm going to focus on the Duluth School District, that are ill-prepared to take on the studies that they've gotten themselves involved in and what they're paying for? And he says, yes, on the average of 2 years, remedial work. Now I had it confirmed by someone who is in administration up there. So my question to you is, did you experience anything like that when students came to you at UMD?
That is actually why I'm so interested in the school system, is because we have absolutely, I would get in my class absolutely brilliant kids, smart kids, clever, with a huge of potential. And so they would sit and they would not have, so we have a certain material that we need to present to them for the general chemistry, chapter 1, 2, 3, and so on. And it turns out that I had to go back and explain the basics of the ratio, of just the basic arithmetic math skills. And they were fresh off the high school. So you have these students, and My daughter will be one of those students who I want them to get as well prepared for the college. If you go and spend in college whatever amount, horrendous amount of money per semester or whatever per year, 20, 30,000, the education cost right now, horrendous amounts of money. You want them to be as well prepared as possible rather than going into the depth with the least knowledge. Because, and this is a bigger picture of it, if you have these kids and they sit in the same row with kids from the other countries where the hard science and the math that we're talking about is hammered into them from the very, very beginning, you disadvantage them right off the bat from the very first step onward. And this is, once again, going back why I'm running, it sounds cliche, it sounds a little idealistic, but we are holding the future of our kids in our hands.
Absolutely.
As I said, as idealistic as it sounds, but it is true. It is true. We are holding the future of our kids in our hands. And it's our moral responsibility to give them absolute best because parents entrusted us with them. And going back to you said you graduated from Danfield, and right now, as we all know, there is a big discrepancy between the
terrible
achievement gap. I think one of the most important things, and it just goes back to rebuilding the trust, it's all little pieces of the same puzzle. I think the parents need to be involved, the teachers, administration. I personally, myself, if elected, will go and ask parents to get back and get involved back into their kids' education. Talking to the teacher. Because once you create this trust, teacher, parent, learner, whatever teacher teaches can be reinforced at home. And it can be passed on, this trust, where the teachers listen to parents and the parents listen to teachers. It's vital, absolutely vital. We need to gain back the trust of the public. Absolutely. Then we can prepare them whatever they want to do in life. They want to go to college, fine. They don't want to go to college, fine. But we need to prepare them. We have their future in our hands. And I really believe that. I really believe it's a huge responsibility.
I totally agree with you. You brought up another thought. I know for a fact, because I've watched Outcome-Based Education Goals 2000, now they call it Common Core. These programs, when you start reading about the implications of them, have really not educated in the manner that I was educated. I know they haven't. And I've talked with people from all over the United States, and one young man came from the East Coast and met him at a meeting. He said he'd never been taught the Constitution in the United States, never. And I mean, I was like, you're not serious. I mean, he said, no, I have not been taught the Constitution. Different schools, different areas, whatever, I don't know what's going on here. We had those basics when I went to school. And I think that we need to go back to some of the basics because there are a few decades, starting in about the 70s, where people did not get the basic thing. Now, they kicked out phonics way back in the early 1900s. Phonics is a program that breaks down a word so you can understand it. When my granddaughter, who is now 11, started in kindergarten, I was down there in Coon Rapids visiting the family, and I was asked to make sure that she did a reading for the night. Got this little paper magazine thing, and it was just a few pages, and she was supposed to read the words in it. Now, this is kindergarten. And in the picture was a dog standing in front of a little girl, and in front of the dog was this bone, and it was a bone shaped like a regular bone, and on it it said, erasure. That is a 3-syllable word for a kindergartner who has just started school. Now, how was she screwed up her little face? Like, I don't understand. I had to ask her what's in the picture, because they teach kids how to read by sight method, and See, Dick, and Jane Run is the first example of that, of some of the stuff I had when I went to school, and I got a couple of those books in my library to prove what I'm saying. So we finally got to the fact that the bone was an erasure. Now, the bone was in front of a dog. Do you understand the confusion on that little child's mind when she's got a little person with a dog with a bone that says eraser, and she's supposed to pronounce that word? I told my son, and I don't know that he told his wife. We don't have real good communication there. But that isn't how you teach a child how to read in kindergarten, but that is the programs that are being used. Now, how many generations? Generation is what? Did you say 25 years? Mm-hmm. Okay. So we're going to go back a few here. How many have had that kind of learning? They can't help their children. When they come home with problems from school, they haven't got a clue as to what is actually being asked or how to help their child. And so when you don't have the extra help in the classrooms, when you have teachers who they've had cut, and they're putting their money into the classroom, that is a major problem. And I think if you get elected to the school board, it's something you need to look at, is how many of these parents need some basic education so they can be supportive of their children. This is a major problem. I really see that as a problem.
That's exactly when I said that there needs to be a solid relationship between the district, the teacher, the parent, and the learner. And once again, I'm going to use, it takes a village. It takes a village. The parents need to be very clear what the expectations are. And they need to be on board. Because when a teacher, once again, we have classrooms which have more than desirable amount of children, softly put. And if you have one kid that has some sort of problems, it can be addressed. But when you have 35, that teacher itself needs support.
Oh, very definitely.
So when we cannot identify, we cannot provide that, even if we would identify, we cannot provide that support. We cannot, we do not encourage that chain of connections, that unit that actually makes the kid succeed at the end of this 12-year term through the public school system. Then I guess that's where the failure occurs. That's where the achievement gap occurs. That's where the problems, that's where the equity comes into a huge front and center big letters. Because some communities need more of that than another. And that is just the reality of it. You cannot, that's where the equity needs to be identified. And we need to work our utmost hard by telling people, we need to welcome them to the school board meetings. Mm-hmm. There's only one or two parents that I see on a regular basis. I want parents to come to the school board meetings. Please come, sign up, ask the questions. If elected, I'm going to encourage, go to every PTA and say, please come, see what we have. This is what we have on the agenda. Is there anything you would be interested in? Emailing, getting the parents involved. Please come and ask. And not only when you have a problem, but just to keep informed. And because parents don't have this trust that they get something informative or that it's waste of time or, it's not productive, or something, they're not going to come. Because guess what? They have full-time jobs, they have a dinner to make, they have kids to put to bed, to wash, to do homework.
Or take them here and there.
Whatever the activities they have.
Yeah.
It has to be important enough and worth their time to show up. And that is my goal, basically, to make it worth for the parents to come and be involved. And they actually hold the keys. The public should hold the keys. I'm a parent. I know what the wonders, and I've seen, I'm on the PTA at Lowell, and I've been involved with them. And what a wonders the parent involvement can make. in everything, in the school success, in a kid's success, in the classroom success. It's a team. It truly is a team. And coming from academia background, you don't do everything, well, some in the past scientists did it by themselves in the dark, but in now day and age, the sharing information is vital. You come together around the table, you say, this is what I have, what piece of information you have, oh, you have something else, oh, you have, let's get together and solve this. And there's no enemies. There's no really school board, administration, parents, school, teachers. It's all together. We have to work together. School board has to work with clerical, with nutrition workers, with parents, just as much as with teachers and parents. Because they're also a huge, huge part of this equation. They are the wheels that keep it spinning. So it's really about bringing it together and kind of like not only narrowing achievement gap, but narrowing this divisive gap on a board and really get everybody talking, it's okay to disagree, but respectfully and respect each other's opinion. So that's what I will strive to do, very much so.
Well, that's refreshing to hear that, Dana, because my experience for those 8.25 years, seeing microphones shut off and hearing about, I wasn't at the meeting where one man was taken out by a policewoman. There used to be police at these meetings. For months, we paid the police department to monitor those meetings because they were afraid of the public. Well, if the board was afraid of the public, why would the public want to come? Because they were afraid of listening to what they had to say. And I've been there listening to people that have had severely autistic, a child that was so severely autistic. I've never seen anything like that. She had been taken out of a classroom in the western section of the city by the police. The history of what has gone on in this area is so stressful, as I said last night. And that's the reason I feel there needs to be an apology. They made mistakes, and like we can't forget the past because we need to remember what has happened, but we don't want to keep repeating that. We need to move on and like you say, get the public there. But they need to know that they're coming there and they're going to be heard, because before I left, there were many people from the western side of the city that came when their principal was being removed and put in a different school. And yet when the same thing was happening up at Homecroft, those people pleaded and they were able to keep their principal. They were not heard out in the western side of the city. They weren't listened to, and those people, they don't want to come back. And there were teachers, there were parents, there were workers in the school. So I mean, it wasn't like they haven't tried. There have been many that have tried. There have been many that have been fearful of coming for loss of job or ostracization or whatever. But yes, that is something that is crucial in this city, is to heal that wound and not allow it to be continually festering under the table. It needs to be out in the open, and like I say, an apology would go a long way to healing that. So,
well, if that's what healing this gap, as I said, the times have changed. From what I've read from the history, is the times have changed, and there is a big progress that has been made. And despite those the problems, I think we need to move forward. We need to look at that, and that is once again, election or not. I'm going to be continually heavily involved in that because I have 2 children. Well, another one is coming up, and I'm going to be a constant presence because I, as a parent, not as a candidate who is going to who's going up to the election. I'm also a parent. I'm a member of the public, and I would like to know. So yes, I'm going to make time to come to the school board meetings. I am going to be signing up to ask the questions. Unfortunately, during the public comment, it's one-way street. I can just make the comment and nobody can answer me, but that's okay. At least there is an opportunity to have my voice heard.
And it's on record because it is being filmed, so it's on a permanent type of record,
Yes.
which is important. I too was involved when my children were going to school. They were in private education, and then I home educated them for 20 years. But I was always involved because I felt it was my responsibility as a parent. And yeah, I volunteered, I didn't get paid for any of those positions in the private sector. I was just there. I was there and available and helping, and that's another thing that the public needs to do is get involved with your child. Don't just send them off to the institution, but get involved and try and be helpful, and that's extremely important. Your child sees that you're supporting them, and the public sees that you're supporting them. That's
and
really
even
important.
people who don't have children, it's there, they still pay into the system one way or another. And that question has been come up during the door knock, and it's like, well, I don't have kids in school. Well, either way, it's your taxes. Think about it, what people search for the first time they move into the city. They look at the schools, they Google schools, which school. It's a huge economic factor. It's the price of the property, it's your taxes, it's value of your business or the property. So people shouldn't forget that aspect of it. And don't get, well, I don't have children, I don't. Yes, a lot of factors in your life depend on a school district without you even knowing it. So it's a good for the city in general to have good schools. It's a good for the city of Duluth to have good schools and care about them. I would like to have a rumor throughout Minnesota, oh, move to Duluth. They have good schools there. They really care about the kids. That would be wonderful. That would be splendid. How soon it will happen, I do not know. But
we need to stop the graduate. We need to stop the equity gap in learning first before that rumor will be a factual thing. Well, it's like you said earlier that when you didn't have children in school, you weren't involved.
Actually, I was when the Central, because there was a referendum. So when then they did this merging and closing of the schools, I was involved because we were planning to have a family. Actually, my son was very little. So I tried to prepare early, did my homework.
Okay.
So I was watching, I wasn't involved, but I was helping. A friend of mine was actually heavily involved. Her daughter was going to actually Central. So I helped. She was very heavily involved. I helped her with, raising the public awareness, what's going on.
Oh.
And but it was behind the curtain. It was nothing official.
Oh.
And
well, those people are important too, though.
Yes, absolutely. And she actually did. She did a fabulous. She moved out of the city right now, but because her kids were. And once again, way or another, kids or not, we're all involved. It's a community thing. We're all involved one way or another.
Well, it affects me, and that's why I got involved. I mean, it affected my taxes without my approval. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I got involved, and I stayed involved for a long time, but had to put the camera aside for a while and do other things. So we can't always be involved, but there are many people that are never involved, and I would encourage you to get involved. But I think the thing here that we need to think about is we do have an election coming up on September 12th. It's called the primary. This is when you make a decision for the general election. Will you take the time to go out and vote? I've been an election judge, and I sit there knitting, crocheting, or doing whatever, especially during the primary, because there's nobody coming in. No stream of traffic like on the general election. That is pathetic, because you get to make the decision of who's going to go into the general electorate. And so I'm telling the people today, you have an obligation to this community. to yourself and to this community. Not to forget, Tuesday, September 12th, the polls are open from 8 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock at night. Don't make excuses. Mark your calendar and get out and vote. This is absolutely crucial for decisions that are for the future that do involve you. And so we have just a few minutes left now. And I would like you to just, if there's anything in particular that we perhaps didn't discuss that you would like to tell the viewers, I'll give you the last few minutes to do that in.
I would like to say that I am Duluthian, and that has been my motto. I'm Duluthian by choice. I really think the people that populate this area are fantastic. I think we have a lot going on for us. We have a lot going on for us. We have a nice programs. Even though at the cost that it came, we have a good buildings, we have it. I think I can really help to get outsider perspective, a little bit a fresher view, and practical solutions to the problem rather than more abstract and kind of, I really can help the city to go out there into the public and maybe a little bit to heal. Because I've been there. I've been that kid who was left on the sidelines in the classroom, and from that, we really need to care about education. We really need to care about the people who work in the system. We really need to make them feel secure and make them feel unafraid to come either to the school board meeting or to speak up, whatever, administration, teacher, unions, whatever that is. It shouldn't be a scary zone. It shouldn't be a war zone. It should be really about the building a community, and I think I can really help it for us to come together. And I possess some diplomatic skills, actually quite good ones, and hopefully we can bring it to the discussion and move beyond that as a community, as an employer, because school district is a huge employer in the area. But we do have problems and we need to resolve them. We do need to resolve them and we need to talk about it. Maybe it's an ugly conversation, maybe it's an uncomfortable conversation, but we need to have it. The achievement gap, the equity, the disparity between the schools, the budget, the support, we do need to talk about it. Absolutely, out in the open, without being afraid, without being scared. We need to come together as a community and discuss it and actually solve it.
Well, it is the future. It is the future of everyone involved, and especially these children who have to be prepared to have a future. That is what education is. That is what knowledge is. And without that, we are developing a system that is a piece of paper that says you graduated unprepared to go out there to the world, which could mean prostitution, drugs, crime, to prison. Do we want that for this area? We've got to do that for our children, give them the same opportunity I had and people like yourself. So do you have a Facebook page or a website that people could contact you to learn more about you?
Absolutely. I post pretty much I post everything myself. I don't have campaign. I do everything that you see posted or written was written by me. So I answer to every single word that I put out there. And on the Facebook, it's Dana for Schools, DANA for Schools, or Bogdana Krivogorsky for Schools. You can find me there.
Spell it out for the people, because
it's just DANA for FOR Schools.
You're from the Ukraine originally.
I am from Ukraine
Correct?
originally, yes.
Well,
absolutely.
It's been fun having you here. This has just been a very enlightening time with you, and I just
I
want to
really
thank you.
enjoyed it.
Thank you for coming in, and thank you for viewing today.